I come back from break and this is what we got? Oh my gosh. Yikes. Yep, Ivalon, it is comfy vampire time. Well, thank you for the welcome back, Rip Artist. Batispada is in fact a werewolf. Well, another one of the primary denizens in the world of darkness, who is going to be getting a book out very soon. I believe PDFs, or at least like test PDFs, are already going out to people. So let's like magic. You know what? I need more potent blood than that. Come on. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I don't know if you hear that squeak. I'm out. My thirst for potent vitae here. Well, cheers, loves. This is all I got. Welcome back, Hero Dragon. Alright, now let's go to... We're going to be talking about blood and some roles that are involved with it. And what can the blood do for you? That's a very good question. So far, we have explored the concept of the world of darkness and vampire, the very basic rules on how to make your dice pools, and really to encourage the story first, the narration first. Where if you're going to roll for something, not that you should roll for everything, but if you are going to roll for something, that you are encouraged to be creative. You are encouraged to describe more than simply saying, I'm gonna roll strength plus melee and hit someone, which you can do, though give it some flair, give it some panache. You know, put a little shine. Well, that'd be more of a brawl than a melee. I got use out of the box cutter earlier because we got a shipment in, which had some battle tech and some paint and some other things in it. But brawl, melee, if we're talking about this sort of stuff. But the point of the storyteller system is to encourage creativity and to encourage you to participate in a story. And even if you think it's a stretch, can you justify and narrate the stretch to even allow for the dice roll, which might support you? Have fun with it. So we build our dice pools, we set a difficulty, and we roll. And you might get a critical. Or you might fail. And failure could be nothing, or failure could be something that's inconvenient. Now, with our prior segment, we took that one extra step. If you're a human in the world of darkness, you don't have to worry about accidentally ripping the door off of a frame, or accidentally tearing someone in half above your head, or accidentally doing a very good job of simulating the Flash because you can run at 60 miles an hour down the middle of a busy street. And so you are contained to mere critical successes, and the margins of success or failure that can come with that. Remember, the margins, any difference between the difficulty, if it's difficulty 2, and you get a critical success, which is 4, then your margin is 2. And maybe there's a power or an attack or a contested. It could be circumstantial. Or you and your ST just go, you know what? We got these two extra considerations floating. Let's make it cool. You do it in half the time. Oh, cool. Thank you. And it could vary test to test, because this is a story in which you're participating. But if you're a vampire, well, you need that stuff. You need blood. Which, in vampires, it becomes vitae, which is different. Not just a difference between champagne being produced in Champagne, France. Otherwise, it is sparkling Lake Erie wine. Okay. Vitae is what powers your vampire. That's what gives you unlife. And so, I mean, blood is often a substitute. But vitae is truly the fuel for you. Now, if you got the distinguishing differences between a normal failure and a normal critical, and what vampires can do as they contest their beast with a bestial failure or a messy critical, because you need to swap out some of your dice pool with hunger dice. There are a couple other things that rolls and rules will be involved. Now, do you have to memorize every single one of these? No, of course not. No more than any D&D player. I've been playing and running D&D for a long time. I do not have every spell memorized, and I have not even attempted to do so. There's a lot of times as a DM, I go, you know what? Stop. I got to look that up. So if you're checking out tonight's workshop here live on Twitch or later on YouTube, hi YouTube. Chat, say hi to YouTube. Say hi to your future selves. Remember, it's okay to go back to the book and look this stuff up. It's my job to present it to you and to try and make it as understandable, as consumable as possible. Where you go, you know what? I was always kind of baffled about the D10s that you roll in Vampire, and how is that? I don't know. I'm just so used to rolling a D20 to resolve everything. I don't know. I feel kind of unsure about this dice pool thing. How do I memorize all the combinations that I need? Well, that's why I'm here to tell you you don't. Because the combinations you need, time and again, may very well change, even for the same action. And you don't need to worry about that. You need to worry about playing a cool character, having fun with your friends, telling tales of tragedy, of horror, of comedy even, because you are allowed to have fun in the world of darkness. It might be that moment of, where we get to catch our breath. It could be dark or gallows humor, but it's still a chance to laugh before we get back into the horrible things our monsters do. But that is part of the fun, the challenge, and the charm of Vampire the Masquerade. Is this kind of resource management. The fact that a starting vampire is akin to a superhuman in comic book terms to a regular Joe or Jane off the street. And how do you unlive with yourself because of that? Let alone the fact that there is now this eternal need to not just eat pizza, not get by on Coke Zero, not attempt to go vegetarian because of moral reasons. You don't get that luxury. You don't get the I'll just take a supplemental shake, or I'll take a vitamin in the morning. That's good, right? Or you have the convenience of living what you believe to be a moral life by going not just vegetarian but vegan, because you can supplement your diet with a variety of non-local or non-native vegetables, and you can take in, enhancing, mineral enhanced shakes and vitamin fortified this or that. You don't get those conveniences. You don't get to do those things. Now, granted, you have phenomenal cosmic power, but you do have that itty-bitty living space, because there are many things that confine you. And your diet is one of them. Well, that's true, Sierra. To be fair, vampires can eat vegetables, just a different kind. And that would be a moral argument for the vampire. Just like for the vampire, the example I keep using. Well, I may be a vampire, but I'm only going to drink the blood of street thugs trying to mug a poor grandma walking out of the bodega late at night. Because you get to feel like you're the hero. Because you punish the wicked. But there's only so many muggers on so many corners on so many nights. And pretty soon you got to start going, well, clearly, all right, I may have run out of muggers, but you know what? That person up there, or that person over there, they're trying to break into a car. I think I can justify drinking the blood of that living human being. And you do.
Let's go.
Tio, most Frio, thank you very much for that re-up. And so you descend down on the person breaking into the car, drink their blood, and you say, I am sated for the night, and you've done justice to the city. Except the person that you just drank, now maybe you didn't kill that person. The person you just drank, actually, his car just has a busted lock, and he always has to break out the Slim Jim to get it down into the window. Has gotten pretty good at it, too, because, well, it's his car. He's probably legally owned it for 10 years now. It's just of that attitude, like, I work hard, I shrewdly save, I don't give in to indulges, I give extra money to charity while I'm saving up for a new car. And you just drink the blood of a very morally upstanding person who is not committing a crime, might even be very devout. And if not devout, what about charitable? Lives a frugal life, but gives the benefits of his job to other people who might need it more than he does. And he's fine driving around a beater, but you know what you did? You just drank that person's blood. And then, of course, an opportunistic human, arguably the biggest monster, comes along, sees that unconscious person, steals his phone and his wallet. Now, his identity's been stolen. There's no way to contact things, and that alarm that was going to remind him of his next medication that he has to take. Not only is he unconscious and unable to take it, let alone be reminded of it, and so he ends up missing that dose, and that might have been a very vital dose of medication. And so this person actually slips into a coma. Now his bank account is being drained, and there's probably some questionable things being arranged with his phone before it might eventually get cut off, and then when that happens, it just gets tossed into the river. And so, because you morally justified, oh, that's a person breaking into a car because you have to feed. You actually just killed a man and enabled 100 kilograms of cocaine to be moved through the city. And on top of that, the money that you were supposed to be donating to your favorite Twitch stream, to your to the orphanage, now has actually gone into the pocket of someone who's going to use it to purchase a pistol in order to gangland style unalive an opponent, probably in front of his family. That was really cool of you, Vampire. But I just wanted to feed on a criminal. Well, yeah. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, what a wonderful world it would be. But this is the world of darkness and not a world of candy and nuts. So we have this hunger, we have this beast, we have this always due bill. Because we're always paying for our immortality, accepted or inflicted upon us. And we're familiar with our D10s, we're familiar that there are mechanics to rolling things. So how do we continue to unlive? How do we perpetuate in this world? Yep, Sierra Echo, Batman style, up on the rooftop. He jaywalked on my watch? That's a snack. Da-na-na-na-na, crack-a-boom. Every time a vampire rises each sunset, calls upon vampiric powers, or stirs their blood, and in that, see, it's blood here, capital B blood, some other way, they risk rousing their hunger. When a vampire surges blood into their attributes, takes on the blush of life, or mends their damaged body, the rules call for a rouse check. Activating most discipline powers also comes with the price of at least one rouse check. To make a rouse check, the player rolls a single die. As always, a result of 6 or higher succeeds. On a success, the vampire's hunger remains unchanged. On a failure, the vampire gains 1 more point of hunger, and thus gains 1 more hunger die. Any hunger gained is added after the desired effect resolves, so it is perfectly fine to make the rouse check at the same time, or even after any other test involved, as long as the rouse die is clearly distinguishable and won't be mistaken for part of the pool. And you might go, oh, wait a minute. Every night I wake up, I might lose. In prior editions, they were called blood points or from a blood pool. I might be hungry waking up. Yeah. Congrats. You are buying your undeath one night at a time. Now, you might go on a lucky streak. You might go an entire week without using any of your hunger. Cool. You got a free week of eternity. But sooner or later, you're going to roll that 1 through 5. And you're going to wake up a little bit hungrier. Because unless you've killed someone by draining them, you always have 1 hunger. And so, your night begins with 2 hunger. Your dice pools for that night begin with 2 hunger dice. Erica employs the Blush of Life. She then rolls a rouse check. Her result is 4, a failure. She still takes on the Blush of Life for the duration of the night, but her hunger increases by 1. Wait, so if I want to wake up at night and try to have a natural appearance without taking up a bunch of extra time by applying makeup and all this other stuff, if you want to rouse the blood in order to gain the Blush of Life, which is a low level of warmth, a simulation of automatic things. It's sort of like a little tickle to your brainstem, so that you don't have to force yourself to manually blink or to manually breathe. Because when you don't have to, especially after a while, it can get very eerie talking to someone who hasn't blinked at all in the past 2 minutes. Now, if you blush, you send a little bit of that blood, a little bit of that vitae to your brainstem to kind of simulate what it used to do when you were alive. You don't have to think about breathing or blinking. You get a little bit of natural color and rosiness back to your skin. You might even have a low level of warmth. I mean, here or there, right? But that means you could possibly wake up with 3 hunger every night that you do both these things. Kind of makes you wonder about how to use your time. Maybe it is just better to spend an hour after waking up to just put on some foundation and blush. Or to wear a mask. Some conditions, such as increased blood potency, allow the player to roll 2 dice on some rouse checks and pick the highest. 1 success on either die prevents hunger from increasing. At hunger 5, the vampire's body is too starved of blood to provide increased supernatural power. A vampire can never intentionally rouse the blood while at hunger 5. If some outside factor forces a rouse check on the vampire, the player must make an immediate hunger frenzy test at difficulty 4. As always, failing a rouse check at hunger 5 still activates the effect that caused the check, if any. Now, how do you slake your hunger? How do you have your plate of saucy nugs as a vampire? How do you crack open a warm one as a vampire? How do you get to enjoy your Borgar as a vampire? Or some equivalent of going into a fancy cafe and getting a half calf, no calf, triple calf, half caramel, half almond milk, 1/3 soy milk, 2/3 1%, with a dash of double pressed, ethically sourced espresso beans, topped with whipped cream, of course. We are trying to watch our figures. So how do you slake your thirst? This constant hunger within you. Drinking blood reduces a vampire's hunger level by a fixed amount. Only draining a human of blood, thereby killing them, can reduce hunger to 0. Younger vampires can reduce hunger to 1 without killing a human victim. As a vampire's blood potency increases, so does their resting hunger level. Above blood potency 7, for example, vampires cannot reduce their hunger below 3 without killing a human victim. It takes time to drink blood and care to do it properly. The bite of a vampire can seem downright euphoric to the victim. Vampire fangs produce a supernatural, intoxicating effect while opening up a blood vessel. Assuming the vampire takes the time to hit a vein or artery correctly and licks the wound closed afterward, the victim may only remember the encounter as a drug trip, an interlude of weird, rough sex, or just a delirious fog of drunken intimacy. Even a closed wound and a happy hallucination for the victim might still leave behind an air of embolism, to say nothing of long-term anemia. Now, do you have to memorize this chart? Nope. You can always go back and reference it. But here is a good way to get a quick reference. All right, you are going through the hospital. You're being chased. You grab a blood bag on the way through, and you tear into it while you're running. Not like you have to breathe. You can drink and run at the same time. So, you can slake one hunger. It only takes a turn. Though, this slakes no hunger for vampires above blood potency 2. That's right, my friends. The older you get, and the more powerful you get, the more atrocities you must commit. You don't get ethically sourced blood bags as you would an ethically sourced triple, double, half latte in the example prior. It doesn't do your body any good anymore. You need the fresh stuff. You need the pure stuff. Animals? A large animal like a horse? There's a point after this potency level, it won't work. It doesn't have the stuff. That's not the sauce you need. And your beast knows it. You do. You turn into a real picky eater. Because now all of a sudden, in order to slake your thirst, people gotta be unalived. And what do you do with the bodies? And how do you answer the questions? That's why there's, mercifully, not many elders and even older. Especially active ones, like those you usually find in court positions throughout cities. Because you are high maintenance. You can do incredibly powerful and devastating things. Endure just fantastic circumstances. But you might need to actually drink to the point of complete exsanguination 2 or 3 people. And maybe the older you get and the less you feel attached to humanity, maybe you don't ask so many questions on whether or not someone was trying to mug a grandma, break into a car. You might just start grabbing anyone you can. Because after a while, you know, the kind of the go-to, because remember, in the world of darkness, you can explore the cynicisms or the the horrors that might exist. There's only so many dregs of society that that a city has, especially before even people in a homeless camp notice that a lot of them are going missing. As various entities interact with the populace is brought in, you can only grab so many vagabonds, so many immigrants, so many people that perhaps many in the city, whether they might tweet about it otherwise or feel otherwise about those people, those tweeters may not actually miss those couple of missing people. May not look too closely into it. Neither the authority figures. Whether it is law enforcement or it is the managers of a city in some capacity. The administrators of justice. Whomever. And you can see where it can get scary pretty quickly, right? If you imagine the networks that elders must have in order to function on a basic level. You think you have it bad as a fledgling where, oh, really? I gotta wake up and I might lose a blood point, or like I might gain a hunger for just waking up. Well, guess I'm gonna have to go to my go to the blood bank where I have a contact and top off for the night without needing to hunt or hurt anyone. Yeah, you got it real rough, huh? As a general rule, attempting to preserve the victim's life, health, or blissed out screen memory, all of which, of course, also preserve the Masquerade, takes longer than simply ripping open an artery and slurping down the red stuff. On the other hand, a victim who fights back slows things down and endangers the Masquerade. A vampire can drain and kill a helpless or otherwise unresisting human in roughly 5 turns. So it's about one hunger slaked per turn spent feeding. With very few exceptions, mostly animals larger than human mass, feeding from an animal kills it. A very careful vampire who takes a whole scene to feed could perhaps slake 1 point of hunger without killing a large dog, if for some reason they valued the dog's life. But who would question a dead dog in an alleyway in a big city, right? Who would question if a bunch of cats just, it happens, right? Wild, stray cats, feral cats, they die all the time from stuff. What's a veterinarian gonna do? Collect a bunch of cat corpses and find out that they've all been drained of blood? Large animals can hold a great deal of blood. A cow contains almost 40 liters of blood, and a horse more than 50, compared to 5 in most humans. But animal blood simply doesn't nourish vampires' true appetites. Animal blood never harbors disgraces. I believe I mispronounced that. And that's a detail. Don't worry about that right now. I'm not even worrying about that in Red Deemer. And not that it's complicated, but it is. It's a fun consideration to play with. The short of it is, blood can have flavors depending on the mood of the person. And so if you drink a happy person's blood or a sad person's blood, it might confer a benefit. That's the super redux of it. Do you have to play with it? No. Can you? Sure, absolutely. And even Gangrel find drinking exclusively animal blood more bland than ecstatic. For vampires above blood potency 2, no amount of animal blood can slake even a single point of hunger. Well, yes, a local Garou pack might take issue, that's true. Feeding from bagged blood. What about just buying and feeding from medical blood bags? Unfortunately for the vampire community, most medical supply blood is fractionated, centrifuged to separate the plasma from the blood cells, and then stored as plasma, packed red blood cells, or other blood products. Even whole blood comes stored with anticoagulant preservatives, such as CPDA1. All of these alterations make bagged blood unpleasant at best to drink and almost useless to Kindred. Without the iron gullet merit, vampires gain no sustenance from processed blood. Unprocessed bagged blood, as with animal blood, cannot slake any hunger for drinkers with blood potency above 2. Bagged blood, like all blood more than about 15 minutes out of a body, has no resonances or other empowering effects to the drinker, although Tremere and Thin Blood alchemists can sometimes still use bagged blood and blood products in their rituals and formulae. The act of blood sorcery ritual or distillation awakens its latent resonance, but consumes it in the same instant. If you go, whoa, oh, a Tremere? What's a Tremere? What's a Thin Blood? The blood sorcery? Don't worry. Don't worry. We're not going to get lost in the weeds. That's just simply bringing up a couple things that maybe if you ever play a Tremere, you touch on it. If you never play a Tremere, forget about it. Now, what if you feed from other vampires? Oh. Can you? Well, 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 you absolutely can. A vampire who feeds on another vampire slakes 1 point of their hunger for each point of increased hunger they inflict on the donor, willing or unwilling. Feeding from a vampire of at least 2 levels of blood potency higher than the drinker slakes 2 points of hunger for each point of hunger gained by the donor. Conversely, feeding from a vampire of at least 2 levels of blood potency less than the drinker slakes only 1 point of hunger for each 2 points inflicted on the donor. Feeding directly from another vampire also risks a blood bond. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Maybe not so fine, but don't worry about what a blood bond is, okay? Minor details. Forget about it. But what does that mean in practical terms? Drink more potent vitae, you recover more of this potential the vitae carries. Drink less potent vitae than what you need, you gotta drink more. But vampire blood is universally compatible. So how about that? That's kind of nice, huh? Because it doesn't matter what you get from the human. Once it enters you, it's already been magically processed. You can make bite attacks. Go figure, right? You got the fangs. You can do that. I'm going to let you read about how you go along with that, because the bite attack not only can inflict damage in a fight, however, you can also slake hunger while biting. And as we discovered, you can attack and bite a fellow kindred, or a kind, or an animal, if you can do such a thing. Blood. Oh, yeah, there's that concept of blood potency. And you can go up to 5, huh? Wow, I bet you could do some really terrible... Yes, you can. But for right now, let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about your maximum or minimum potency. Those are things you can buy up or earn over the course of your descent into vampirism. There's lore here that you may wholly embrace. This is the common explanation for vampires. You are a descendant from Cain. The mark of the mark of God upon Cain for murdering his brother was being turned into a vampire, and since then, well, it's been passed down. Now, why is there presumably nothing below 4th gen? Arguably even Cain himself? Reasons that you can read if you want, if you don't want to accept it. If vampires in your world are not born of this presumed origin, they don't have to be. They can be something else. If you want to run your vampires as... Do you all know the symbiote of Carnage or Venom? Think if this vampiric curse, if this vitae, and why vitae is different than human blood. Think if this symbiote was on the inside and not the outside of the host, as you find with Venom and Carnage. If you want to run Vampire the Masquerade, even with the consideration that everyone just thinks that you are children of Cain, but we know that actually you're an alien symbiote that perpetuates itself, that reproduces through others, through the blood. Cool. We've gone from Eldritch horror to cosmic horror. And nothing really had to change. Or everything changed. It's your game, it's your story, you do what you want. But if you are a lore hound, read up on this, pardon me, and enjoy. Because there's some cool stuff here. Even within a generation, the potency of the blood varies. As the years pass by, the blood thickens and matures within the limits of a vampire's generation. Being embraced by a powerful sire or braving the foul amaranth provides shortcuts for this power, or to this power. But with increased potency comes also a price. You require more blood to sustain you, and the curse of your lineage also becomes more evident. Blood potency increases as a vampire ages. As a general rule, a vampire gains a dot of blood potency every 100 years while active. But especially intense experiences or exposure to extremely potent blood can speed the process. A vampire in torpor loses blood potency at the rate of 1 level per 50 years. The blood potency of a vampire can never fall below the minimum for their generation, nor be increased above the maximum. Thin bloods can never increase their blood potency unless they diablerize their way to 13th generation or above. Ah, diablery. It tastes so good. What is it? It's a detail. It's a fun thing you can discover. Blood potency yields the following effects at each level. For a complete breakdown of the effects, see the table on 216. That's later. So you can go through here. Yeah, forget about it. Diabler, yeah, forget about it. Huh? So you could read through the chart. I'm not going to bore you with the details. I do the same thing if I cracked open the player's handbook in D&D. I'll show you some interesting spells. I might review 1 or 2, but I want you to read it. Because it's going to mean more to you as you're putting this together. Because I can't presume that you have an interest in... Well, I don't want to play a blood potency 0 character. Though you can have a ton of fun doing so. I want the big stuff. I want to make at least an Ancilla, let alone an Elder. And you just say, you know what? I want to start at blood potency 4. What does that mean? Well, you read about it. It's all right here, 217. Support your friendly local game store and pick up a copy of the book. And if you don't have one, let me help hook you up. But you may recall as we talked about the general concept and setting and kind of what was a storyline break in continuity between older editions and 5th, that is with the Beckoning. As the Beckoning strips the world of its elders, these levels of blood potency become increasingly rare. The reclusive, strained remaining ones surround themselves with myth and legend, as well as a more puissant guardians. With blood more potent than it is human, these vampires turn quite alien, both in mind and body. Vampires at this level are not intended as player characters, and they are included in the blood potency table for storyteller purposes only. Could you exceed the limits as a player? Yeah, work it out with your storyteller. In fact, because you lose blood potency if you're in torpor, which is sort of like a forced hibernation, a compelled hibernation for vampires. If you want to play a vampire that was embraced, in other words, you were turned into a vampire back in the Renaissance era, but you've just been in torpor for this long, you wake up, yeah, you could be weak, and you can have fun rediscovering the modern world, 600 years later. And you don't have to be ridiculously powerful or need to crack open 3 warm ones a night to just get by, to take the edge off, So these are the gifts of the blood, blush of life we touched upon. You gain more human-like. Just sort of a passive complexion. You can mend yourself, right? Someone shot you in the liver. Yeah, you don't need it, but you probably shouldn't be walking around with a hole in your skin because that's a masquerade breach. Like, dude, you just got shot. It's a funny a Black Knight scene from Monty Python. Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, your arm's off. No. So you can mend by channeling your blood through your body. And these are things that you rouse for. So you're rolling d10s and you're looking for 6 pluses. Disciplines, which are some of the cool like magic powers that your vampire gets, might cause you to surge your vitae, your blood, through your body in order to get things moving and to sort of draw on the powers that you've been given by your curse. Remember, every night you rise from day sleep, you make a rouse check. Frenzy. Now, this was talked about. It was mentioned a couple times, and I'll touch on it here because we haven't yet. And Frenzy is important to understand. It is as it sounds. Frenzy waits for every vampire, a constant threat to their fragile peace. Outside circumstances usually provoke a frenzy, snapping the thin leash of the snarling beast within. The ultimate expression of the basest drives of the blood, a frenzy looses the beast without thought or remorse, the predator in full abandon. A vampire in frenzy loses all capacity for rational thought, driven solely by rage, starvation, or panic. They do whatever it takes to rip their provocation to pieces, slake their hunger, or escape the perceived threat. Usually violently and with plenty of collateral damage. Unlike many other impulses of the blood, a frenzy is never subtle. And this is something that all must play by this game. Whether you are a fresh fledgling, a blooded neonate, a seasoned ancilla, or older. Every vampire risks frenzy. And so, of course, when you get more powerful, you can also do more powerful atrocities in that frenzy to escape fire, to feed, to do these things. This is something that connects every single vampire because of this concept. For the beast is within them all. And how do they manage it? How do they control it, subdue it, or distract it? How do they buy their immortality one night at a time? To resist frenzy, the vampire rolls willpower against a difficulty set by the storyteller based on the level of provocation. Vampires add dice equal to 1/3 of their humanity, rounded down, to their willpower pool when resisting frenzy. A vampire resists frenzy on a normal win, but must spend a turn to suppress the impulse. On a critical win, they resist the frenzy without losing a turn. This is why willpower is an excellent resource. Remember, you use that to re-roll non-hunger dice. But if you have less to spend, you also have less that can help you to keep yourself in check from frenzying. Humanity is wonderful because it is a departure from the beast. The less your humanity, the closer to this bestial nature you are. And if you have a low humanity, because you spent it on doing things like just tearing someone to pieces and not feeling too bad about it. Yeah, you handled that situation, but you lost a part of yourself in it. The less you have, the more dangerous it can get. And if many elders also have lived long lives and have committed great crimes, they may still have some impressive willpower for surviving that long. They might be limited in their humanity. And if they snap, can you imagine what a Brujah elder can do with something like a normal dice pool of maybe 12? Because of specialties and such, let alone focusing any sort of strength disciplines. And they'll do anything to get out of there, right? Riding the wave. A vampire can also choose to ride the wave, intentionally succumbing to the frenzy without making a test. This act follows the usual frenzy rules, though the storyteller should let the player play out the frenzy themselves, such as choosing who they feed on first, rather than having the storyteller take complete control of the character. If not riding the wave, a vampire in frenzy becomes the property of the storyteller for the duration. While in frenzy, vampires remain immune to any health-based penalties short of mutilation. They can only use physical disciplines, such as celerity, fortitude, and potence, but they resist mental disciplines, dominate presence, with 3 extra dice added to their resistance pools. If the discipline has no resistance pool, then the user adds +2 to the difficulty. The player can spend a willpower point to assume control of their character for a single turn while in frenzy. So you're buying turns. Now, a turn could be a while, depending on the circumstance, but may not use willpower to reroll dice. The frenzied vampire cannot be provoked into frenzy by another stimulus, nor can they gain compulsions. They try to achieve their goal at any cost, and their frenzy remains until they do so, or until the scene ends. Now, there's different kinds of frenzy. You can read about them. You can go, oh, this would make for an interesting encounter to set before my group of vampires, if you are a plotting storyteller. Do you have to memorize these charts? Absolutely not. As a player, nor as a storyteller. We're on page 220, and you can find it in the you can find this in the index, or you can find references like this on the storyteller screen or other compiled notes. It's here to read. You do not have to feel inundated with needing to memorize. Okay, so I get frenzy, but now there's these different types? Oh, no. Play a vampire and have fun. And if frenzy comes up, research it. Or keep a note handy. There are ways that the blood can be extinguished. Some of these were on display to the characters in the Tuesday game. For when they entered the sheriff's chamber, not only were they surrounded by large statues bearing the 6 the 6 laws, the 6 tenets of the 6 traditions, of the Camarilla, but there were also 6 salt statues in various stages of becoming undone. As an example, perhaps, by the executioner, the head executioner of the court. And this is a menacing presence. This is put on full display that, yes, you are technically an immortal being. I mean, so too is a Space Marine in Warhammer 40,000. But you're only immortal until you're not, and there's several things that can make you not. And so that was put on display as a way to show a bit of intimidation, or at least to hone in a sense of respect that you can end. Do you have to memorize these? Nope. But they're here. You ever wondered what happens to Canadian vampires? Well, here you go. You can read about it. This was written specifically for them. And don't forget as well, because we are in a realm of fiction, of urban legend, of myth and mystery. Aw, thank you, Streaking Sheep. True faith itself might repel or afflict a vampire. For as much as I described a rampaging Bruja elder in a frenzy, capable of throwing city buses, a simple child, a mortal child, may be able to deflect, cow, drive away, or even harm this creature. Is it pervasive? I don't know. Where is this taking place? And even with that, it's still an individual level. There are countries which are more pious throughout their population than others. Many in the United States complain of a dwindling lack of faith in something. It doesn't even have to be an Abrahamic religion. So you may run into people with less true faith in a random U.S. city than you might in a very devout Catholic city or a very devout Muslim city in the Middle East. Though, even within those cities, we're talking about true faith. Not going through the motions, not doing what you need to do because it's obligated by law or you want to appease the in-laws. And so you know the words, you know when to kneel, you know when to stand, you know when and how to pray. But is your heart in it? Do you have faith or do you have rote practice and dogma? You can read about it more on page 222. But consider it. Torpor. We brought that up before. That's that halfway between life and death. And final death is just that. There's no coming back from this one. They can't take the stake out of your chest and feed you blood to stimulate you back to unlife. No amount of clapping will bring you back from where final death had sent you. You can read about how to achieve torpor, or how to earn the trophy of final death in your playthrough of Vampire the Masquerade. I don't need to get into the details. This isn't necessarily stuff about rolling. Are they rules? Yeah, because they are statuses for your vampire. And there are ways to gain those statuses and at least ameliorate one of them. But final death, it's final death for a reason. And so we come back here where we started. Because some of you might look at this picture and say, oh, I wish this were me. Do ya? Do ya? It's alluring, and that's the point. But here we have a game that fuses the roleplay concepts and the mechanics together in some very cool and compelling ways that at the end of every session, the golden rule in the world of darkness is to tell a story and don't let the dice get in the way. Maybe in your game, no one rolls for rouse checks at night. You do a Leslie Nielsen vampire Dracula Dead and Loving It, and everyone just rises up out of their coffins. No cost. Maybe you have a storyteller that says, don't worry about feeding. I'm just going to presume that you do it. It should be second nature to you by now. Or you have a storyteller, and this is something that Macabre Derek likes to brag about. He loves running new players through a basic feeding scene. Because despite it being a basic feeding scene, things can get ugly quickly. And what do you do when that happens? Also, Kaihira, hello, as well as Hoylepa. Hello from Germany. Well, guten Morgen to you, because it's probably 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So thank you for joining us from there. And if I mispronounced your name, let me know, and I'll do my best to correct it. It's 9 a.m. for you? Get up, hey! Vampire, eh? Haven't touched a World of Darkness style game in bloody years. But tis. Yep, so we've been going through the system this week, Ketup. We started with just an initial approach. Oh, you see an interesting book on the shelf at your friendly local game store. What's this about? Crack it open, look at the art, talk about the concept. No rules, right? No rules, just right. Outback Steakhouse. All right, street level games, horror. I can get into this. I like vampires. Maybe I've played a vampire in D&D, or I have some other concept. Sorry about that. I was baffled by something. And so, to get that initial interest, what do? Let's just look at it. Let's just talk about it. No rules. Last night, we talked about the very basic rules. It's a game of D10s and dice pools. So there's your D&D. D10s and dice pools. At its core, that's it. And then tonight, we took the basic dice pool building, and we talked about how vampires have a different take on it because of this intrinsic hunger that they have. And throughout the course of the evening, we saw how the lore, how the fluff intermixed with the rules or the crunch in this system, and they fit pretty well together. Okay, so you did give it a try, Hoylepa? Or just Lepa is enough? Okay. Now, I will say this to you, Lepa. Well, this is a game, it is touted as a game of personal and political horror, so politics could be involved, right? Dramatic scenes in the court of the vampires, or kind of a cynical or a negative take that reflects real-world politics, because, of course, the monsters are the puppet masters in control. I do want to assure you, Lepa, and anyone else watching, if you don't want Game of Thrones intrigue and murder and jockeying for position or anything, if you don't want that, if you don't want court scenes of the higher-ups bickering back and forth, if you want a street-level a game of a gang of vampires going through and fighting crime. Or we have the good guys of the Sabbat getting into a battle with the bad guys of the Sabbat. And it's more combat, it's more classic adventure style. You go and explore old castles and sewers. It feels a little bit like a D&D game or a traditional fantasy game. You absolutely can run Vampire that way and focus not on machinations that span lifetimes and the constant petty jockeying back and forth, or you're tired of real life politics and you're tired of all of that and you don't care if this game explores a conspiracy theory that blah 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 is connected to this company, or this political party is the inside the pocket of blah 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 blah. You can ignore that. Now, Vampire can lean into it, does have ways to do it, but if you want to keep it low level, street level, you want to keep it, fights in the streets, or exploring strange places, forgotten places. Even as a vampire, discovering ghosts are real, or zombies might walk among you and actually can threaten you. That can still have a horror, a sense of adventure or purpose. And hopefully, Lepa, I hope one day... Oh, so you play werewolf. I'd say, yeah, World of Darkness still works for you. You just have a different bend on it. That's fine. I like mage. But for all of you out there, you can approach this game in many different ways, and I hope you'll at least give it a try and give it a look. And make sure you have a conversation with everyone that's at your table, the storyteller and your fellow players. If you say, look, I'm fine for horror, but we leave kids out of it. No one can feed on them. For intents and purposes, they don't exist in our game. We're not going to talk about it. Or if everyone at your table, it's how comfortable you all are. Because if you really want to showcase the absolute horror and alien nature of the beast, that it takes someone who otherwise is cold and logical and has maintained the Masquerade. But wouldn't you know, a fire breaks out in the apartment complex they're passing, fails that test, frenzies, and ends up, barreling over, running, through a school bus passing by to escape. Well, there you go. Ketup says, I always loved the description of werewolves in the vampire book. A giant ball of muscle, claws, fur, rage, and covered in blood. Yours. Don't mess with them. Some of that's preserved in 5th edition, but Ketup, a lot of those books that were born from the early 90s with that sense of humor, or that kind of little bit of pessimistic satire, or that kind of witty directness. It is preserved in part here, but it's not nearly as potent as you'd find in the older books. So hopefully over the course of this week on this approach, you've come to at least know what this game can offer. And maybe this has interested you in stepping up to want to learn more, that you do want to play or run a game. Because it can be as loosey-goosey as you want. Don't memorize the whole book. Don't! Stop! You. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Don't memorize the book. Make a vampire, put it in a city next to you, where you know of an urban legend, and have fun. Run around the city. Jump rooftop to rooftop. Be Spider-Man or the Hulk. or delve into the sewers and the politicking and machinations and set people up for some kind of a plot or to be framed for a crime, whatever. If you're having fun, you're having fun. And I hope that you do have fun with this. I may be biased as a friendly local game store owner, but I am not just the vendor. I have played and I have run Vampire. I have played Mage, I have not run Mage. And I have neither played nor have I ran Werewolf. Nor any of the others like Promethean or Wraith or something like that. Now, what we're going to do, if we come back over to... By the way, as you all saw, I got some inventory in. We had our session 1. This is a VOD on Twitch, and it will be up on YouTube soon. This coming week, on Tuesday, not only will we have our second of our 3 sessions of Vampire, we will then be going into character creation, character building. We will make vampires together in our workshop. Then after we conclude our vampire game, we'll come back and I will teach you how to create your own story within Vampire the Masquerade. Because it's not very difficult to do. It might even be less difficult because it draws so much on what we are exposed to every day in our modern world. The opportunities and the threats. And I hope that you'll be able to continue to come back. If I've earned your follow, thank you. And also, when I hit 4,000 followers, I'll be giving away a $400 gargantuan pre-painted Tiamat figure. I'm excited for that, and we're getting super close to that mark, too. But as you can see, what we do is teach. We're a workshop. We put out ideas. We think about them. We help each other learn. We build characters. We build stories. We present. So that you can consider a game that perhaps you haven't before, or a different style of a game you already play.